remind you that it's not only in the rap scene that we find clashing. It's almost part of this one side versus the other. You know, like Sheffield Wednesday versus Sheffield United, Manchester City versus Manchester United, Liverpool and Everton, Liverpool and Arsenal, Liverpool and Man U. There's always rivalry between camps, and even in Jamaican music we've had that. And I would say that could have started from, we had artists pitted against each other. We had Yellow Man, we had Dillinger, we also had Supercat, the era of Supercat and Shabba Ranks. We had the era of the Sunsplash, when artists would go up and clash with each other because they might have heard something on a record that they didn't like and go back and diss it or whatever. We had Red Dragon, Florigan. We had a lot of artists who were going up there. Papa San even. We had Ninja Man in his heyday doing a lot of the clashing narratives. Bounty Killer, Merciless. And even to the modern day, when we look at the Gully and Gaza between Mavado and Vibes Cartel, even bringing in people like Popcorn into the mix. And it still goes on today. When I visited Jamaica and spoke to some of the youths who are out on the streets, some of them family, some of them were just youths on the streets, they would give me their views on it. And it was quite interesting how they saw it. And this is probably indicative of more cities. When you go to the cities, the youths who are on the corners will be listening to the artists and being influenced by what the artists say. Even in the area I lived in, there was a time when the areas decided to part company and people were then warring amongst themselves. But we will see this in more cities. In Manchester, it's the similar thing went on between the areas. Liverpool, you might find the same thing, where different areas go against each other, and this then spills out into the music industry. And that's why I mentioned Gully and Gaza, because I think this is the nearest one we could get that then emulated something of what the Tupac and Biggie era was showing us, where Vibes Cartel and Mavado, respectively, from each camp, were representing their own lyrical prowess. And I won't take sides on it, but I think that they were both brilliant artists, and to this day I would not go on either side. I would stay right smack in the middle and say they're both great artists, and hope that one day we see where clashes is not only done in a peaceful way, but is made to make money for the artist, where the artists fully understand and fully endorse the violence is not part of it. We endorse the love of music, but we don't endorse the violence. So let's continue with this modern day music interaction 2024. Good morning and welcome back to another episode of the greatness that we are, and the messages that I'm getting and the love and all the support I'm getting is greatly appreciated. It's a show that's only just going to grow and get bigger and become more and more widely accepted in the world of entertainment and communication. It's already proven to myself that this can be done in simple ways. I'm not just here to be an influencer, I'm here to be influential. That is what I'm aiming to do, and that's already on its tracks. It's already working as I wanted it to work, as this program is now going into most households and being received very well. As I said, I'm getting the support, I'm getting feedback, and I'm seeing some of that feedback in indirect ways where people are then using some of the information that they see in the internet. It's not just me out there doing information. There's a lot of people doing information that's beneficial, that's bouncing around, pinging in and out of the internet. We're now getting more and more information, and the information is coming thicker and faster. I'm seeing it myself, and I'm trying not to be influenced by the other influencers. I'm trying to be influential, and not just in the messaging, but in the types of messages that we can bring out to people. We all beat way of looking at life. I look at the positive Whereas in the news, it's mainly about negative, and that can be detrimental and can be damaging to people's psyche. Their psychological behavior can change just because they're caught up in this cocoon of bad news, negativity, being alone. Also, the world is changing and it's getting more and more sophisticated and in some ways dangerous, from how the news is telling us that it's very precarious. There's wars. We're now closer to nuclear obliteration than ever before, where the superpowers are now discussing this as though it's just a natural everyday occurrence. And this can lead to many things happening in people's lives. It can lead to people not giving a fuck and some basically going into panic mode, panic buying, having all these theories and having all these ideals about the world. And I myself have my own ideas, I have my own ideology, and that sometimes may come across, and I try my best not to influence people in my politics, but I do have a belief system, I do have an understanding of the world differently. I was born way before technology really took its place and people were more personal, there was more interpersonal connection going on way before things like this, the telephones, the video screens, and the vlogging was going on. We were going out and meeting people who were writing letters. We didn't have text. We had pen pals and we had telegrams that we could send. And this was the fastest way to get things across. And when the telephone came out, we were into that. So this program is about modern day music, and it's about how we can look at the modern industry. Because the industry and the business is nothing really to do with the music. The music is just part of the music business. And the songs that I like and I love are from artists who have a way of looking at life in a way that may be similar to myself and maybe similar to some of you out there. We look at it through an artistic level, we look at it through a spiritual level, and we also look at it through a modern day understanding, how we are living today. So if music resonates with you through any on a similar train of thought than that I am on, and I've entered into the way of looking at things through philosophy, and music has a philosophical approach to it as well. You know, we can look at artists who have not only made their mark in the music industry, we can also look at their songwriting skills. We can also look at their other efforts that they do as philanthropists. We all enjoy music. We all enjoy some of the artists, and some of the music of modern day that I like us from the reggae industry, and some are from the R&B industry and the soul industry and gospel, important to me, as is soca, calypso. And I do like the mainstream music, especially with some of the modern producers who are using music from different countries, different styles of music. In particular, I like how reggae has now touched on more than one genre, and we have artists now today that are doing stuff that's, I would say, is linked with the American rap scene. They call it trap reggae, reggae trap, bashment dancehall, or trap dancehall. Valiant comes to mind, Coyote. I've heard a few tracks from these artists. Mr. Vegas still has his finger on the pulse, and we have a new, young, up-and-coming singer who I would say similar to Frankie Paul as a singing style, and is also got an impairment that is his eyes, and that's Nigel Boy, who's similar to Frankie Paul, I would say, in that way. And we also have to look at some of the artists that have still reigning right now. Beres Hammond, a wonderful and humble artist who I've spoken to personally on a number of occasions, and always gives an insightful look on the music industry, and is a very intelligent person with a lot to offer. And his voice, it's got that silky smooth style, and he always seems to deliver the goods, as do people like Maxi Priest still doing music. And we have other artists, Bounty Killer, Beanie Man, still doing tracks, even though they've had to adjust to the new styles. Bounty Killer, Beanie Man still stand out. And if you watched the verses that they did, I think a lot of people will admit this, that dancehall music took a great leap on that day, because I watched it, and to this day I think that was the most entertaining of all the verses that was has been done. I haven't watched all of them. I thought it was another great one. Dipset versus the Locks. I think that was another great versus because of how it went down. And I think I do rate Dipset, but I think that day showed what teamwork can do against individuals. Even though you had three or four great individual rappers for Dipset, they didn't work as a team. They didn't come in as a team, and they still have great songs. And I would never diss Dipset, but Locks came out and professionally put on a show, even though it was a versus and it was something that I'm sure most people understand from the Clash environment. If you've gone to most of the Clash dances that happens in the dancehall scene, you see how clashes versus can be done, where two people can basically cuss out their mama clot to each other, and basically at the end of the night, whoever's won, no matter what profanities we use, it ends up as two people going and porting their own ways and going and not resorting to violence. And that is what is entertainment. Whether you and that person don't really like each other, your followers and your friends should not then make that into something else. It's an entertainment. And in the Jamaican world, clashing is everything. Two artists, two sound systems clash each other. Even when we talk about dub plates, that was based on the clashing environment. And this is modern day music. So when artists don't like each other, it shouldn't ever resort into violence. Unfortunately, nowadays we see that happening. We saw that in the era of hip hop, where Tupac and Biggie both started out equally. Tupac may have had the bigger name in the beginning, but Biggie became very popular within New York. Tupac, very influential, very intelligent person, a background that's very interested in his story, his backstory about his family, and that it shows the upbringing of Tupac. But unfortunately, when these two artists then came out at the same time during the 90s, this became a problem. And I would put this down to the record companies. And I'm not going to point fingers, but we see a lot of this now being unraveled and on resurfacing a lot of the information about Tupac and Biggie. And we have P. Diddy in the mix, we have Jay-Z in the mix, we have a lot of the bad boy entertainment artists who were around at that time being drawn into this. I don't really know these guys personally, but I was around when the story was being unraveled, and it's now being unraveled even more, and a lot of it can be down to conspiracy theory. And this is why I'm talking about how the media and our communication really takes a side, it picks a side when these artists, even let's mention R. Kelly, let's mention Elvis Presley, let's mention some of the other artists who have had illustrious careers, Prince, Michael Jackson, Gary Glitter even. Let's mention these people because this is all part of the controversy of the industry that happens when these artists are no longer making vast amounts of money for the record label. And the fans are now getting blamed for some of this because they're saying that the fans are the ones who are supporting these people even when the information was seeping out. The fans are not privy to what is real and what is not real. Let's get this straight. The information that we get via media or via word of mouth or the grapevine, they might call it, is sometimes clouded and it's blurred. So you have an artist now on the scene and all of a sudden bits of information seeps out. It was happening with R. Kelly for many years ago. There was a video that me and my friends used to watch and it was on the internet when the internet first came out. And was this R. Kelly? I'm not too sure. Was this female being abused? There was definitely case to say that there was some abuse going on. I can't say whether it was R. Kelly, but we can see the results now that R. Kelly has been found guilty and is now in prison for this, or some similar things. I don't know exactly the things that he was being accused of, but I know some of the things, as we know about with the artist Aaliyah, who died in a plane crash. And this is all now being investigated mainly by the internet, because the authorities haven't done any more investigating, but now they're starting to investigate a whole slew of things. So we've got to wait and see how this plays out. But as I said, with Aaliyah, she was a younger woman who was definitely connected to R. Kelly in the beginning, and that is how I was told when I, because I was buying music. I only heard about the artist, read about the artist through the various magazines that were coming out, and obviously was word of mouth. And within the music business and within the music industry, as DJs, we would discuss things, we would talk about this. We knew the name of the album, which was Age Was Nothing But a Number. She was managed by R. Kelly. There was rumours going about then, and then things came out in the tabloids about marriage. So these are not new revelations to myself. I look back and reminisce about how this information was being dissected within the community and by myself at the time. And I chose not to openly come out and accuse R. Kelly, but I never ever really was a great fan because of these rumors. Whether this was right or wrong, I think it does influence you. And this may well happen with some of the new accusations that's coming against other people who are in the industry. This may sort of influence negatively and positively how their careers then take a turn. Some artists then thrive off bad publicity, especially if it's not true. But if it's true, then sometimes there's damage limitations that has to be done. And we find that within the community that I live in, rap music, reggae community, anything that is thrown at them by the media, it's usually harder for them to come and deny it. They have to either come online themselves and deny it. And if then evidence comes out, which is the basis of truth, we have to understand that when we deal with the law and when we deal with accusations, it's to do with evidence. So without evidence, a lot of people will deny. Why? Because they're either ashamed or they're embarrassed. We all have things that we've done that we are embarrassed of. But there's a difference when you're ashamed of something. You will definitely try and hide that thing if you're ashamed of doing it. But if you're embarrassed or you just don't want people to know, this is what most people fail to understand, that most of the people who are accusing other people, they are no better themselves. And if we look at it in a religious and a spiritual world, then this then becomes a problem, because we have one side of the media that accuses the other community of doing things that they're not even investigating their own community about. And this might seem like a bit of a riddle, but we all understand this. And our own community, we should stand up and speak about things that happen in our community. We shouldn't have this attitude that it's snitching. And I'm going to say that again. We shouldn't have this attitude of the things that we talk about is snitching. There are things that we grew up on. I grew up on a code. Do I live by that code? And I'm not even going to answer that. But the snitching code is a code that we have to sort of look at where where's that from? What's that all about? That's something probably to do with from slavery. And within my community, it was frowned upon to snitch to the authorities. It's always been this way, and I can only put it down to that slavery has taught us that we should not tell to the authorities when things are being done, and we should then deal with it ourselves. But fast forward to modern day times, we're not actually dealing with things ourselves. We're allowing these people to become very powerful. And when you have powerful pedophiles and you have powerful criminals, you have powerful drug dealers, and you have powerful murderers, you have powerful hitmen, you have powerful scammers, it's then becomes who is then going to then deal with these people. You either have to have opposition, or you have to then set up what we class as vigilante or kangaroo courts. And this is why the media has then jumped into place, because the media is the kangaroo court. It is already trying people way before they go into courts. And this can be a problem. You've got to understand that this can be a problem also for justice, because if people have been tried before they get to court, they can then say that they're not going to get a fair trial in this country or in any country because of the media. And most people watch the media, even jurors. So I'm mindful of this. I'm mindful of how I make accusations myself, because obviously I'm not perfect. We all have maybe what they call skeletons in the closet, or things that we don't publicly go out and talk about. And I'd have to ask people, why is this? Why do people feel that being a homosexual is something that they cannot talk about? I myself would not feel ashamed if that was something that somebody came and told me. I would then still keep them as a friend. I myself am not a homosexual. I do not practice homosexuality. And I know this is a question that most artists have thrown at them. And it's something that I've had to come across, and people have asked me what is my view on homosexuality, and I'm going to give it straight to people that everybody is allowed to have their own sexual preference, and that has no bearing on my relationship with that person. We may be limited in our conversations and our interaction because we don't have the same things in common. I'm going to talk about females, they're going to talk about males. And I think the conversations would end there. That is where things are. Because, as I said, I'm heterosexual. I do have people around me, or I do know, who are not heterosexual. Let's put it that way. I don't ask them their sexual preference, but I do know that, this is what goes on. We have to be aware of what's going on in the world. Other things may not be important to some people, but in the music industry, this seems to be a bane of contention of what people's sexuality is and what are their proclivities, what do they prefer. And the media does this very well. They will dig deep. And we have friends out there, we have family out there who then will also spill the beans. They call it, spilling the tea, or, whatever they call it now. And people will tell on you in the music industry, and whether you have an ego or not, that is going to happen. And the ego is a major problem for artists, a major problem, because the ego is something that it can be nurtured and it can be sort of planted at a very early age, and once it goes unchecked, it can become a monster. You can create literally a monster from an artist, from a young, humble person who you give them confidence, you build them up, you put them on this stage. They get all this adulation, then they get money, they get prestige, they get the trappings that come with it. So this is where ego is created. It is created in the mind, it is created in the physical world. It is actually a tangible product that people then feed off. Your fans feed off your ego, they give you your ego. I never ever reached this stage of being idolized, but I do understand how people become cocky. This is part of being egotistical, megalomaniacs, all of these things, psychopaths, egomaniacs. These are all personality disorders, some might call them. Some may not call them disorders, some may call them benefits, because they can be. Being a narcissist, this is a word that's now becoming ever prevalent, and I think narcissism in the music industry is massive. So these artists that I mentioned earlier on, not all of them are mentioned in a negative way, and I hope nobody sees this as me influencing their opinion on anybody out there. Apart from who I do like artists who produce good music. P. Diddy is one of the best producers I've ever heard, and some of his music definitely will be played by me. R. Kelly is one of the greatest songwriters and producers out there. Michael Jackson, his music will still stand the test of time. Prince, his music will still stand the test of time because of his songwriting and because of his instrumentation. Jay-Z, great rappers. Beyonce, her music no matter what comes out of this industry, what people say about people, their music stands the test of time, is a testament to myself. The other stuff, I don't know these people. I don't really care too much about their personalities. Let's be honest. I'm going to be honest here. It's very few programs are going to be honest. I don't care about their personalities. And this might sound like I'm copying off because these people are then able or feel free to go and do. No, if they're found guilty, anybody in this world's found guilty of doing something as evidence, then the law will take its course. What I'm here to do is to talk about the music. The other stuff, the other baloney, the other bollocks, I will talk about as an adult, because this can be a controversial platform. It can be used in a way to do that. But I still have to be mindful of how these platforms are put together. They will ban people for saying certain things and making certain accusations, because some of these people actually run these platforms and have an influence in how these platforms are pushed out. And I know this because I've been in the industry, and I do believe that my influential ways have always been influencing people, and people have denied that and tried to look at it that, no, he's just a local artist, nobody really knows about him. But when I put stuff out, it's been written, copywritten by me, it's been stolen, ideas have been stolen from it, vibes and styles get copied by other artists, things that goes out on the internet gets copied by people. People will get influenced by you, and some will then steal from you. And that is one of the problems with the industry, that people who are not as creative as some, as I class myself as being very creative, some will steal from me just to get ahead in the game. And that is how the industry, and this is part of the ego. So I'm going to put this program in more than one part because it's quite long, and I want it to be long because I want it to have as much of the essence that I'm trying to create on this other side of it as I can. It's about new music, it's about the influencers, it's about songs, it's about the artists that I listened to from the sound system days to the radio, pirate radio days, where we were creating the narrative. In the pirate radio stations, the music that was coming out was us who was pushing it. It wasn't being pushed by the media. The artists who were coming out had to go through the ranks. They had to start off in the grimy clubs amongst them, all their own people, amongst their own peers, to get to be noticed by ourselves. Because as an artist myself, I'm not going to play an artist who doesn't make sense, who's not saying stuff that's of any creative level. But unfortunately, we have to do that nowadays. People are putting stuff out because they're probably got a bit of money, and they're just putting stuff out. They're able to put stuff out. They're able to bypass some of the trials and challenges that I had to go through. We had to go through all the talent shows, all the music theory and the classes, the music classes. We had to go through all the opportunities that we had to try and take, and some of them we had doors closed in our faces. We were denied access. We weren't, light enough. We weren't commercial enough. So the record labels were looking at other artists, and these other artists, where are they now? They're not doing anything. They're probably not even in the music industry because they were one-hit wonders. They don't really understand the industry. They don't really understand music. Whereas I understand music and have continued to find niches. This is what I'm doing here. I've created a niche in other places. And I know other people are looking, well, how's this guy doing this shit? How's this mother? And this is what I'm trying to say to you, that I'm influential. I'm influential the haters out there to try and copy me and emulate what I'm doing. And that is something I don't even have to prove. I know it's going on. And if you're one of the haters out there, you keep watching. If you're one of the lovers of music in general, you keep listening, because we're going to give you more juicy bits to get your teeth into. And as I said, modern music is on the rise for me. What I'm doing is modern music, and I'm going to try and introduce you to some of the modern artists I'm working with. Crazy Don, another brilliant artist. Not as well known to many people, even in Jamaica where he's from, but he's a very influential artist on the scene that I'm working on. And also Bobby K, another artist who I have to salute these artists, Cadian, Miss McFarlane. Got to big up Shazlin, Nita, Megla Squami. I got to big these people up. KC. Yeah, these are people I'm going to continue working with. Fat Larry, I'm going to continue working with them. Symbiotic. We don't have to be as famous as some of the other names, but I'm going to mention them all the time in the same vein because these are people who I feel close to. ukjz family, the Jam Down Runnings family. We know how we operate out here. We are truthful to each other as much as we can. And as I said, modern music. We've got Afro beats, we've got soca, we've got the mainstream beats, we've got a lot of female artists now coming up. We've got artists who have been doing things for a long time. Mary J. Blige, Alicia Keys, who are still formidable talents in the music industry as songwriters, as performers. We have Fantasia. We have a lot of artists that I do love what they're doing, some of the newer artists as well. There's so many artists I could mention. And as I said, I tried to get this first one off, roll it off first, because there's a lot of controversy in the industry, and I've got to make you aware that I'm aware of the controversy as well. And I will sort of try to talk about it. I'll try to talk about what people's reactions are. We've got Snoop Dogg out there, we have 50 Cent, we have Ice Cube, we have Will Smith. We have all sorts of influential artists, big, massive artists, Dr. Dre, who are important to the industry. Missy Elliott, very, very important. Usher, very important to the industry. These are artists that we listen to all the time and we are entertained by them. So let's keep the good work up. 29 minutes, nearly half an hour worth of chit chat, love, and lovey dovey stuff. Peace on to you. Yeah, yeah, yeah.